Man, those Orlando Magic are tough. They beat the Celtics again. The Celtics lose Kristaps Porzingis, and they didn't look tough enough in this game. I'll talk about it all and more on this Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you every day with a free, fresh podcast that's dropped directly to your device if you are a subscriber. So go ahead and subscribe. Audio-wise, wherever you get your podcast. Video-wise, on YouTube, watch the show, comment in the comment section there, hop in there, have a conversation. Let me know what you think about the Boston Celtics losing to the Orlando Magic, 113-96. Tale of two halves, as people might say. First half, they actually looked pretty good, I think, except for one small stretch. Second half, they looked pretty bad for most of it. I'm John Karalis. I used to play a long time ago. If you're new, that's who I am. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. Usually I talk about what I like, what I didn't like, and I'm going to do that. But, I made the format. I can break the format. I feel like this is just a little bit of a different show. I also want to mention that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, get $20 off your first purchase, last-minute tickets and stuff over at the Gametime app. So the Celtics in the first half looked pretty good. They had a nice lead. I think got up to 12 at one point. Actually, a little bit more. They looked good. They withstood a run, and they answered the run. They answered very nicely. In fact, what was Boston's biggest lead? It was 12, and they gave up a 9-0 run in the first half. They answered it. They went up by 8. So they're up by 11 after 1. They're up by 8 at the half. And I thought, okay, not bad. They're not bad. Then the second half happened. And aside from a couple of little spots, they didn't really look good at all. They got outscored by 25 in the second half. Mo Wagner continues to have his absolute madness revenge tour on the Boston Celtics. If you haven't paid attention to exactly what Mo Wagner is doing to the Celtics, I have the stat for you right here. In 10 career games against the Celtics before he joined Boston, he scored a combined 58 points. So 10 games, 58 points is 5.8 points per game. In 4 career games since being cut by the Celtics, he has scored 94 points. He scored 27 in this game. He's averaging 23.5 points per game as a member of the Orlando Magic against the Boston Celtics. His average for the Magic is 10 points per game. Mo Wagner is a walking revenge game. I should have seen this guy. I should have opened up my FanDuel app and bet on Mo Wagner's, whatever the over was, the over under. Man, you probably could have made a ton of money on the over-under on Mo Wagner because he's just consistently just ruining the Boston Celtics. So I thought the first half looked fine. The second half, Porzingis comes out in the midst of a 17-0 run for the Orlando Magic. It was, I think at that point, it was 12-0 when he came out. There was a timeout. Left calf tightness. That I don't like calf tightness because the calf is tied to the Achilles. And every time I hear calf, I'm always questioning, is it the calf or is it Achilles tightness? Either way, I mean, he just looked like he was limping a little bit. I always want them to be careful with that kind of stuff. We'll see how that impacts him at all if he's going to play. The next game is Sunday against the Toronto Raptors. And then after that, Tuesday against the Chicago Bulls. This is where I should mention, for those of you who care about the in-season tournament, Now, I know many of you don't. You do not have to tell me in the comments that you don't. You can if you want, but I know you don't. I know plenty of people don't right now, but plenty of people do. Some people do. And here's the situation. The loss means the Celtics have a good chance of not making the knockout round in the semifinals and all of that stuff. They may not go to Vegas, which, hey, free trip to Vegas in the middle of the season, that's not bad. Guys actually like that. So if they had won this, they would have clinched. They lost. Now they're 2-1. Orlando's 3-1. They need two things to happen. They need the Brooklyn Nets to beat I forget who they're playing, but they need the Brooklyn Nets to win on Tuesday so they can go to 3-1. The Celtics need to beat Chicago so they can go to 3-1 and force a three-way tie. They need it to be a three-way tie because if it's just Boston and Orlando, then head-to-head is the tiebreaker, and obviously Orlando owns that tiebreaker. If they go to a three-way tiebreaker, that's point differential. And now Boston has to beat the Chicago Bulls by 23 to get a point differential big enough for them to advance beyond the Orlando Magic to break that tiebreaker. So that makes the Tuesday game against Chicago potentially a whole lot of fun, because not only do you got to win, or do you want to win, but if you want that free trip to Vegas, you got to win by 23. So that will be a fun one to see exactly how much the Celtics win by if they come out with a purpose. Boy, even if they do it on Tuesday, you know what's going to happen. I can tell you already, this is 2 games from now. I know what's going to happen. If they win on Tuesday by 30, then there's going to be a segment of the population that goes, yeah, great, woohoo. And there's going to be a segment of the population that goes, see that when they're focused and when they do what they need to do, look what they can do against a bad team. Which there's a kernel of truth to that. But it should also be noted, Orlando's not a bad team. If anybody out there is sitting there saying, oh, it's the Magic, why can't you just beat the Magic? The Magic are 11-5 now. The Orlando Magic are 1 game behind the Celtics in second place. They are a half game ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, and Miami Heat, all of them tied at 10-5. The overall league standings, by the way, percentage points, Minnesota now has the best winning percentage in the league. It goes, here's the top 5 winning percentages in the league. Minnesota, number 1. Boston, number 2. Oklahoma City, number 3. Orlando, number 4. And then Denver, number 5. It's obviously early, right? 15 or 16 games, 14 games, whatever it is. So when you get to game 82, this will probably look a bit different. But let's just kind of bask in this weirdness, or actually maybe not so weirdness, because Minnesota's not a bad team. Oklahoma City is not a bad team. They got a ton of talent, and so is Orlando. They've got a ton of talent, and they're tough. They're tough. That's a tough group out there, man. And that's the big point. Porzingis, I don't know how long he's going to be out. We'll see. If it's just tightness, maybe it just needs to be worked out a little bit of ice, a little bit of rest, a couple of ibuprofen, and he's good. We'll see. But I tell you one thing, they missed him. They missed him. And I think one thing is emerging here. The Celtics need both Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis. They need both of those guys on the floor or in the lineup, because when you have either of those guys in, you have a little bit of a different dynamic. We've seen them without Derek White. When they have him, he just does so many good things. The one possession early there in the first half where he threw the alley-oop to Luke Cornett, man, just the recognition, the screen setting, the understanding when to roll, understanding the situation, throwing that lob and floating it there when Luke Cornett needed 3 steps to go catch it. Beautiful stuff. They need him there. They need Porzingis there. Jaylen Brown needs Porzingis there. I'm going to harp on that. Nothing has changed my mind about Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis need to be attached at the hip on the floor. And when he's not out there, that becomes problematic for Jaylen, who had just an amazing first quarter and then a crappy second half. But they need those guys out there, and they needed Porzingis especially because of the toughness that the Magic kind of displayed. The Celtics needed somebody out there as an outlet, because when the toughness gets ramped up, it gets tougher for the Celtics. I'm going to continue talking about that in just a second, because I think that's one of the big talking points here coming out of this game. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. The Gametime app is what you need when you need last-minute tickets. Download it right now and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Why should you download the Gametime app? A few reasons. First of all, you get last-minute tickets, right? Maybe you were planning to go to Vegas and the Celtics might not go, and now you say, well, I'm not going to Vegas. What am I going to do in those nights? And you want to get a last-minute ticket somewhere. They got flash deals. They got zone deals. You can view the seats from your phone so you know what you're getting into. They've got the lowest price guarantee. So if any ticket shows up in the same section or row for less, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. When you look on your phone, you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting from the seat. You know what you're getting from the price, because it's all together. You're not going to be surprised by hidden fees at checkout. So if you need last minute seats, and not just to a game, we're not just talking about the game. We're talking about musicals. We're talking about comedy shows. We're talking about any kind of theater, any kind of thing where tickets are sold like that. Entertainment, it's there. So check it out. Take out the guesswork of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, right? So get out there, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKED, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Thanks for being an everydayer with me Monday through Friday. Now check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's 24/7 live streaming. The first 24/7 live streaming app on YouTube. Our national shows, the top sports stories, the local experts. It's an incredible thing, and it's on all the time. Put it on, leave it on, and you get caught up on everything. Check it out. So the Celtics, one of their weaknesses, let's be honest, let's be real here. We've talked about it for a long time. They're not the toughest team in the world. They are phenomenally good. They are, when they are at full strength and when they are fully playing their absolute best, nobody can touch them. Nobody can touch them. When they're playing full, just ball movement, player movement, the engaged kind of defense, man, like I can't see a team beating them 2-3 times in a series, much less 4. But if you're tough, like Orlando is, mentally and physically, push the Celtics around, push them to their mental limits, frustrate them. That's what that means. Frustrate them. Get to the, hey, the refs can't call all the fouls. Can't call them all. So just bother them. You can bother them. You can force them into getting out of their comfort zone. You can force them into a little bit of frustration, which takes them away from the ball movement, which takes them away from the good shots, the good to great shots, the making the right play shots, I shouldn't take this particular jumper. I am going to find somebody and make a pass before I take this jump shot. Those kind of things, because when you're getting pushed around and prodded and all of that stuff, even if you call a few fouls, man, it's the NBA. You get 6 fouls. That's a lot. You get some room to move. So you can do some things. Like you can do something like push Jayson Tatum into your teammate and have it become like a frustrating thing. By the way, Tatum, I think, might have hurt his finger on that play. So I don't know if that impacted how he played in this game. Generally, on paper, it doesn't look like a bad game, by the way. 26 points, 12 of 13 from the line, 7 of 16 overall, so not too bad percentage-wise. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, just 2 turnovers, but not impactful. Not an impactful game from Jayson Tatum. Yeah, push him around. He's a little under the weather. Maybe the finger thing kind of bothered him or something. I don't know. But he did say after the game, like, he's dealing with a cold. There's a cold going around. I saw Jaylen Brown blowing his nose on the sideline. I think there's just like a cold working its way through the Celtics. So maybe he is a little bit worn down. Maybe he's a little bit tired, but still, especially in that situation, the Celtics can be bothered by that kind of stuff. The Celtics, Jayson even said after the game, we need to play tougher. We need to play tougher. There are a lot of things happening here at the beginning of the season that I'm not concerned about right now, but we're filing everything away, right? Where it's all about, it's like you have a bunch of different scales in front of you, and you're just piling the little pebbles of, oh, this is a problem, I'm going to put on this scale. Here's a problem, I'm going to put on this scale. And you have it like, well, it's not enough to outweigh the good things, but the more stuff you put on this side, the more it gets bogged down and the more stuff can even out if you're not careful. So the closing moments of the games, finishing, executing, Celtics missed a bunch of free throws. Like, you got to hit your free throws. It's a very just no-brainer stuff. They're 18 of 25 in the second half. So in the second half, when they lost by 25, well, 7 of those points are on the free throw line. So now, if you hit your free throws, you don't lose by 25. Now it's 18. Well, 18 is a little bit more manageable. You hit a couple more 3-pointers, well, it's 12. Now that's a lot more manageable. You hit a couple of your layups, well, now it's 6 or 8. And you're like, oh, well, you're within reach. And those types of things have to happen. But if you're out toughing the Celtics a little bit, then that's where they start to struggle. So Orlando is a good team, and maybe they'll fall off, right? I'm not going to sit there and say Orlando is going to be challenging the Celtics this year, but we've all said, I said it last season. If you're an everydayer and you've been listening to me, I've been saying it since the beginning of last season. Watch out for the Orlando Magic. They're good. And Wagner and Banchero are a good combination. And when Mo Wagner is in full revenge mode, then that changes so much for them. But they've got good, solid guys that play hard and play together. Cole Anthony can be scary out there, and he's 16 points, was a plus 17. Their bench is really good. Aside from Wagner, Gary Harris can come in and chip in a little bit. Joe Ingles can chip in a little bit. Jonathan Isaac can chip in a little bit, played really good defense in that against Tatum. Those guys can come in and really be pretty tough. So they're not going to go away. Maybe they'll drop in the standings this year, but Boston still has to play them again multiple times. And who knows how the bottom of these is going to shake up. Maybe there's a first-round matchup against Orlando. Maybe there's a second-round matchup against Orlando. I don't know. But even if things kind of level off and water finds its level, this is a team that Boston could see again beyond the regular season. That's a little scary. Boston has to learn how to play tougher in those situations. And not just this year, next year. Orlando's still going to be good. They should be better. The year after that, they should be better. They're going to continue to get better. Banchero is no joke. Wagner is no joke. Neither of them, but Franz especially. This is a team that can be a real pain for the Celtics. This is 4 straight losses to them. So, yeah, that's a weakness that's going to be tested for the Celtics. Let's get into some of the other stuff here, including, sometimes I wish Joe Mazzulla would just call a timeout so I don't have to talk about it and explain why he didn't call a timeout. I know why he didn't call a timeout. All right, I'll tell you next why he didn't call the timeout. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel, our good friends at FanDuel. They're the number one sportsbook in America, and for good reason, because you, new customer, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets just by winning any $5 moneyline bet. Put a $5 bet down, moneyline bet, Boom. If you win, if your team wins, you get an extra $150 in bonus bets. So this is a great time to join FanDuel if you've been wondering about it. You can bet all the simple stuff, right? Spreads, player props, over under, stuff that you kind of understand. You can pile up parlays, in-game parlays, same-game parlays, where you can do like Jayson Tatum's points, more than whatever, rebounds, Al Horford's rebounds, Kristaps Porzingis blocks. You just go more than this, over that. If you win all of them in the same bet, you can really multiply your money. So check it out. FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Get yourself going here as the NBA season really kicks into gear. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL, NBA. They've got great tools on FanDuel. Make sure you use them. The tools to help you set your limits, the tools to help you kind of keep things in check so you're not out having too much fun, more fun than you should be. It's okay to have, a little bit, but set your limits, especially this holiday season. Check it out at FanDuel.com/locked-on, and you can please gamble responsibly. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA as your second listen. Check it out. I'm usually there on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. Sometimes I have to miss because the Celtics are playing. And if you want to check out the Celtics when they play on Sunday in Toronto, I would recommend downloading the SiriusXM app. SiriusXM is they've got the radio call. So if you don't want to listen to some of the national calls and you can't get the local broadcasts, listen to the SXM app, search Celtics. You get Grandy and Max, sync it up to your TV. Boom, you're golden. So check that out there. By the way, Sunday at the Garden is Make-A-Wish night. That's going to be a fun night. Make-A-Wish Foundation, 40 years they've been doing this. They've granted over 10,000 wishes for kids in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So go support them if you're not going to the game. Maybe you open up the Gametime app. You get some last-minute tickets there. And support the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Friends of mine over there at the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So I really would encourage you. This is the time of year for giving. I would encourage you to support the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Okay. The Celtics gave up a 17-0 run. And at the risk of reacting to Twitter but I saw it in the comment section. I'm sure everybody's losing their mind, right? It's a 17-0 run. Joe Mazzulla does not call a timeout during a 17-0 run. Well, it was 12-0, and the Magic called a timeout because it was the mandatory timeout, the TV timeout. But apparently, when the other team calls a timeout, or it's a mandatory timeout, that doesn't have the Magic momentum-killing abilities that if Joe called the timeout, because it went from 12 to 17 after that. So here's why Joe Mazzulla didn't call a timeout. I'll explain it. The run started to happen, like the first basket started to happen around 9.5 minutes. Then by the 8.5, really it was like 7:50, 7:45, where it was like, 11-0 run. This is starting to feel like you feel it, right? You can feel the timeout, Joe, timeout. And he doesn't call it. Well, at that point, it's 7:51 to go. If you can just hang on to the 7-minute mark, then that's Orlando's timeout. That's the mandatory timeout. Just hold on, guys. Hold on. Can somebody do something to keep this in check? Somebody on the floor do something. And it's not just like Joe's coaching, Joe's calling plays, Joe's trying to get these guys organized. They're professionals, right? It's Tatum, it's Brown, it's the starters. It's their starting lineup. Minus Jrue Holiday, he missed the game, so Al Horford's in there in his place. So, and that's a group that played really, really well in the first half. And in the first half, it was a 9-0 run. Joe did not call a timeout. The Celtics answered 16-8. The game was tied. They ended up going to the half up 8. Their biggest lead at that point was 11, so they only gave up 3 points. Not bad. Fine. So here we are again, third quarter, doing the same thing. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go through it again. You figured it out in the first half. Figure it out again in the second half. But they couldn't. No one said a thing in the first half because the Celtics figured it out. In the second half, he's like, come on, guys, just do something. And you know what happened? Jaylen Brown misses a layup. Derek White throws a horrible turnover. Like, what are you doing? If he makes the layup and that pass makes it through, and instead of 11-0, it's 9-4, then that's manageable. And that's on the team for being like, you got to execute. You just got to execute. You got to finish that layup. You're Jaylen Brown. Make the layup. Right? You're Derek White. And I'm not going to get too hard on Derek White either, but that's just such a bad pass. And so they get to the Orlando timeout. Only gave up one more point at that point, by the way. People are screaming, oh, it's 11-0 run. Why aren't you calling a timeout? They only added one more point after that, which was on a dumb take foul from Jayson Tatum. And then a couple of misses. There is a timeout called. It's a 12-0 run. It gets extended out to 17. So the timeout didn't do anything anyway. And the way they were playing in this game, what was the timeout going to do? Beginning of the fourth quarter, Mazzulla calls a timeout to challenge a charge call on O'Shea Brissett, I believe. A blocking foul, I should say, on O'Shea Brissett, which I felt like that should have been overturned, regardless. He calls a timeout to challenge that, comes out, Mo Wagner scores 6 straight points. Okay, another timeout. At that point, he calls another timeout, and it's 85-74. Well, the Celtics eventually go down 95-81. So the argument that I get from people is, well, you should have called that first timeout. Now they've got too much confidence. They got too much momentum. Now the timeouts don't work. It's like there's a magic point to call a timeout. You have to call it at 9-0. You have to call it at 11-0, because once you didn't call it, got it to 17, now timeouts are broken. Now the timeout doesn't work anymore, John. Yeah, he called 3 timeouts in the fourth quarter, but by that point, they were broken. No more power in the timeouts. Their magical ability to end momentum is gone. It only works that one time. That's what people are saying. And I only bring it up. I only harp on it because I want people to understand there is no magic momentum killer to the timeout. I do understand, and I do think, and honestly, let me say this. I would have called the timeout. I would have called it, but I understand not calling it. And I think so much emphasis on it being Joe has to call it. Joe has to call it. Like, can we not let the guys on the floor off the hook? What was he going to do in that timeout? There's no guarantee that it's going to break momentum. You're not going to sub anybody out. Your starters are in the game. Your best players are already in there. Who are you going to sub out? So, to me, I know I'm dedicating a whole segment to this by saying, to say it should not be a story, but I know so many people make it a story that if you think that the lack of timeout was the biggest story out of this, then you missed a whole lot of bad basketball from the Celtics, because there was a complete lack of poise in the second half. Guys were making some real defensive mistakes. They're just overreacting, like 3 guys overreacting to drives and leaving guys open. And then the overreaction to the overreaction leads to second chance points. I think there was a lot there that the Celtics could have just done better. Forget the timeout for a second. Those guys, no timeout was saving Boston in that spot. If they're playing great in the game, if they're playing great and all of a sudden they start to lose their way, then okay, maybe it makes a little bit more sense. You get them back. Maybe you can see them getting away from some of the things that was working. But the Celtics, nothing had been working at that point anyway. And I don't know. I just feel like it's so overblown. It's so overblown. I think I'm just going to stop there. What are you going to say? What else am I going to say? I'll talk more about the in-season tournament if you want. No, look, Orlando's a tough team. Orlando's a good team, a tough team. I like the Orlando Magic. So that's a good team. Losing to them is not. I'm not sitting there saying like, oh my God, they lost to another bad team. They very, very clearly did not lose to a bad team. They're losing. They lost to a good team that just won 6 games in a row. And by the way, that team just beat the Denver Nuggets. So that's no joke. The Orlando Magic are no joke. The Celtics are also, by the way, just 12-4, right? They're 12-4. So I'm not going to overreact to that either. They lost this game by 17 and they still have the league's second best point differential. So yeah, there's like a 50-point win in there that's kind of throwing this off, but also they're still really good. They're still really good. They got one losing streak of 2 games and they lost 2 separate games on the road. So I'm not going to sweat it that much. I mean, I'd like to see them win by 23 on Tuesday. I'd like to go to Vegas. I like going to Vegas. So go ahead and try to win that on Tuesday. I'll be here for all of it. I'll be here, all of it, all the time. A little bit of a weird schedule this week. I did not record Thursday night into Friday, but technically this is going to be released on Friday. So I'm still Monday through Friday this week. I didn't miss a week. You just didn't get a bonus podcast. This was going to be a bonus podcast. This is just now the Friday podcast, which is going to also be the Saturday podcast. So bonus-ish. I don't know. I'm done. I'm rambling. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. If you're new, welcome aboard. Love having you with me every day. If you are an everydayer, thank you so, so much. I'd love it now if you share the podcast, spread the word, tell your friends, tell everybody, tell people in line while you're waiting to pay for something when you're shopping. If you're one of the people that still shops outside, that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.